Rain drizzled down the cracked sidewalks of downtown Atlanta as 17-year-old Amara Freeman tugged her hoodie over her braids and adjusted the tote bag on her shoulder. Inside were books she'd borrowed from the library, classic novels, criminal justice textbooks, and a well-worn copy of The Hate U Give. She had just finished volunteering, helping younger kids with reading and homework. Her sneakers slapped the pavement as she walked toward the bus stop, earbuds in, humming along to a mellow R&B track. Her world was quiet, until it wasn't. "Hey! Watch where you're going." Amara blinked in surprise as she bumped into a police officer rounding the corner. She quickly yanked out her earbuds. "I'm sorry, I didn't see." Before the sentence left her mouth, the officer stepped forward aggressively. "Why's your head up? What are you hiding?" I was just walking home. I volunteered down at the..." "Stop resisting," the other officer said, already grabbing her wrist. "Wait, what?" "I'm not." The words were drowned out by the sound of shuffling feet, her book spilling from her bag onto the wet sidewalk. A crowd began to gather. Amara's heart pounded. "Please, my name is Amara Freeman, I haven't done anything." One officer shoved her against the patrol car. Her cheek hit the cold metal. Her hoodie was yanked down. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "I am," she cried, tears welling as panic surged. A bystander raised their phone, recording. "She didn't do anything," someone murmured. "She just bumped into him." But the officers weren't listening. One of them twisted her arm behind her back, too tightly. Pain shot through her shoulder. In that moment, pressed against the car, hands cuffed, body trembling, Amara didn't scream. She didn't fight. She went still. She wasn't just afraid, she was tired. Tired of this happening to people who looked like her. Tired of assumptions. Tired of having to stay calm while others escalated. She lowered her head and whispered, "You don't even know who I am." The officers didn't hear her. One of them patted her down roughly. "Let's get her to the precinct. She'll learn not to run her mouth." As they dragged her into the back of the car, her tote bag and books lay in a soggy pile. No one picked them up. From inside the cruiser, Amara looked out through rain-streaked glass, breathing heavily. Her cheek stung. Her knees ached. She closed her eyes. She wasn't powerless. Not anymore. She whispered again, calmer this time, almost like a promise to herself. "You have no idea who my father is." Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the cramped precinct holding room. The air smelled of disinfectant and damp uniforms. Amara sat on a cold metal bench, her hoodie damp and stained with blood from her split lip. Her wrists throbbed where the cuffs had dug into them. She cradled her arm, trying to hold herself together. The officers hadn't said much since they brought her in, just smug glances and thinly veiled jokes. One of them tossed her a tissue like it was charity. Another leaned back in his chair, feet up on the desk, chuckling with his partner. Another one resisting. "That's what they do, right?" he muttered. Amara didn't respond. She just stared straight ahead, unblinking. Then a female officer came in, perhaps more indifferent than cruel, and unlocked her cuffs. "You get one phone call. Make it quick." Amara rubbed her wrists and took the phone without a word. Her fingers hovered over the keypad for a second, shaking. Then she dialed from memory. 2 rings. Then a voice. "Freeman." Amara's voice broke. "Dad, it happened again." There was a sharp silence on the other end. Then a slow exhale. "Are you safe?" "I'm at the 12th precinct. I think. They said I was resisting. I didn't do anything." "I'm on my way," he said. "Dad," her voice cracked. "Please hurry." "I will. I've got you." The line went dead. She slowly handed the phone back. The officer who took it raised an eyebrow. "Who'd you call?" "Your mom?" Amara didn't answer. She folded her arms and leaned back against the wall, letting the weight of her name do what her voice never could. 20 minutes passed. The room grew quieter. A few officers peeked out the windows as the sound of tires screeched to a halt outside. A sleek, unmarked black SUV pulled up at the curb. The door opened, and David Freeman stepped out. Tall. Composed. Wearing a black overcoat. His badge hung on a lanyard beneath his jacket, gold, federal, unmistakable. One of the desk officers squinted. Hey, is that? Another stood up. No way. That's not. It was. David Freeman, director of the FBI, strode into the precinct like a storm wrapped in calm. He said nothing as he passed the stunned officers. No need to announce who he was. They recognized him immediately. He'd been on the front page of the New York Times just 2 weeks earlier, speaking on justice reform. A measured, principled man. But in this moment, he wasn't the director. He was a father. David opened the door to the holding room, and when Amara looked up, her tough exterior cracked. Dad, she whispered. He crossed the room in 3 steps and gently knelt in front of her, wiping a strand of hair from her face. I'm so sorry, he said, voice low but trembling with emotion. I'm here now. He stood, turned to the officers, and in a tone both chilling and calm, said. The precinct was frozen. Officers who moments ago carried themselves with arrogance now stood rigid behind desks, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. Director David Freeman didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone commanded silence. He stood beside his daughter, who sat quietly, bruised, exhausted, but now surrounded by something unfamiliar in this place, safety. David took a slow breath, scanning the room. I asked a question. The room stayed still. Then, reluctantly, one officer stepped forward, Officer Barnes, the same man who had thrown Amara against the squad car. We didn't know who she was, sir. David turned fully to him, his expression unreadable. And that would have changed what, Officer Barnes? Your approach? Your tone? The violence? Barnes swallowed hard. She matched a suspect's description. We followed protocol. Protocol, David repeated slowly, should not leave bruises on innocent teenagers walking home from the library. An assistant special agent entered behind him, handing David a tablet. David tapped the screen, video footage from multiple angles, already pulled from civilian phones and sent in. It showed everything, Amara's confusion, her calm voice, the aggression of the officers. One tap later, and it was forwarded to Internal Affairs. David turned to the precinct commander. Effective immediately, Officers Barnes and Reed are suspended pending investigation. Body cam footage, if any, will be reviewed. If not, that'll be noted. The commander gave a stiff nod. Understood. But David wasn't finished. He stepped back toward Amara, who was now sitting upright, watching her father with wide, quiet eyes. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Then he looked at the room once more. My daughter shouldn't have to be my daughter for her rights to matter. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. She's not the exception, she's the example. Every young person who looks like her, walks like her, talks like her deserves the same dignity. You've failed her. But you don't have to stay failures. The room absorbed that like a hard blow. I'm establishing a voluntary outreach and empathy program for departments starting with this one. Led by Amara. He glanced at his daughter. If she's willing. There was a long pause. Amara hesitated, then stood. Her voice was soft but firm. If you're willing to listen, I'm willing to talk. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, one of the younger officers, Officer Diaz, stepped forward. His face was pale. Regret lived in his eyes. I was there, he admitted. I didn't stop it. I froze. But I want to do better. Amara nodded once. That's a start. David looked around the room and said, this isn't about power, it's about purpose. We serve communities, not control them. As he walked Amara out of the precinct, heads bowed in silence. But behind them, something had shifted. Not fear, awareness. The SUV door closed with a soft click. Amara exhaled for the first time in hours. You. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, community leaders, and even a few uniformed officers filled the rows, buzzing with quiet anticipation. A banner stretched across the stage. Voices of Change, Youth and Justice Forum. At the center of it all stood Amara Freeman. No longer in a hoodie or school uniform, she wore a blazer over a white shirt, her hair pulled back neatly, a microphone clipped to her collar. But what stood out most wasn't her clothing, it was the strength in her eyes. Calm. Focused. Unshaken. She scanned the crowd. Somewhere in the back, her father watched, hands folded, face unreadable but proud. Near the front sat Officers Diaz, Barnes, and Reed. Not as guests of honor, just listeners. Amara took a breath. I was thrown against a car because I bumped into someone. Because I didn't move fast enough. Because I looked suspicious. The room was silent. But what scared me most wasn't the force. It was the way they didn't see me. I wasn't a name, or a daughter, or a volunteer, or a dreamer, I was a threat. I was, less. She let those words hang. Some students looked down. Some wiped tears. And then, she continued, voice steady, they found out who my father was. Everything changed. That's when I realized, the problem isn't just bad behavior. It's a system that needs someone to be connected to be treated like a person. She paused. But here's the truth, everyone deserves to be treated like someone important. Whether your dad runs the FBI or fixes cars. Whether you wear a hoodie or a uniform. Whether you're black, white, immigrant, rich, poor, loud, quiet, you matter. A soft murmur of agreement moved through the crowd. I didn't come here to shame anyone, Amara said. I came here to ask for something harder, empathy. The kind that makes you pause before you act. The kind that makes you ask, what if this were my sister? My son? My friend? She turned her eyes toward the officers. And to those who wear the badge, I see you. I believe some of you want to do better. But wanting isn't enough. You've got to try. You've got to show up. Not just for the uniform, but for the people who are afraid of it. Officer Diaz looked down, visibly moved. Beside him, Officer Barnes clenched his jaw, pride fighting guilt. But he listened. Amara's voice softened. I forgive those who hurt me. Because carrying pain forever? That's not justice. That's prison by another name. A single clap echoed from the back. Then another. Soon the entire auditorium was on its feet. Applause swelled, not out of pity, but respect. As Amara stepped down, she was no longer the girl who got arrested. She was a voice. A leader. A bridge between fear and change. Her father met her at the bottom of the steps. You didn't just survive, he said quietly. You transformed. Amara smiled, tears in her eyes. So did they. And in that moment, hope didn't just exist, it multiplied.